Welcome everyone to the Get to Know Her show. I am so happy to have you here today. The Get to Know Her show is a show where you will meet some of the amazing, kick-ass, inspiring businesswomen I know. So today we have a big show for you. We have Burlington Mayor Marianne Meed Ward with us today. I am so excited, and I'm particularly excited that she's here for this episode because guess what, you guys? It's the 1-year anniversary of the show. This is the week that I started a year ago, and let me tell you, when I first started, I did not know how to use this double screen technology. I had no idea what I was doing. I was actually interviewing people on speakerphone and going live. So that's progress for you. I am so happy that we are here at this place where 1 year later, we get to talk to our mayor. Very exciting. Before I introduce Marianne Meed Ward, I want to show you guys my outfit today. I wanted to be a little bit more business formal. So Brenda Badome sent me this awesome jacket and a beautiful little salmon top underneath. It is so comfy and I feel so good in it. So make sure you guys know, as Get to Know Her viewers, you get 21% off when you order brendabadome.com just by using the coupon code Get to Know Her. Now, without further ado, I'm putting my specs on and I'm going to introduce the mayor to you. Mayor Marianne Meed Ward was elected as the 29th mayor of Burlington, Ontario in October of 2018. She is also the second woman to hold that position in Burlington's history. She is working hand in hand with Burlington City Council leadership team, staff, and community partners to help our city grow and thrive in these extraordinary times. Though the COVID-19 pandemic has created additional focus areas for the mayor and council in order to keep our community safe and healthy, Mayor Meed Ward remains committed to the platform she was elected on, creating an environment of respectful debate and open dialogue with the community and City Hall, supporting reasonable growth in the places and scale that makes sense for our community's vision, making it easier to do business and grow here in Burlington, and making decisions that support inclusivity, fiscal responsibility, and our environment. Like many of us, she has spent most of the past year working and communicating from her home office, but she still puts her heels on even when she's spending the day on Zoom calls and hoping her dog Boston doesn't interrupt too loudly every time the mail gets delivered. I love that. Without further ado, let's talk to our mayor.
Hello, everybody.
This is fantastic. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for be asked.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. And the timing is perfect. I was just telling the audience, it's the 1 year anniversary of the show. This was one of my pivots with the pandemic. And so having you is just super exciting. Plus, yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day, which is like double the excitement. So yeah, this is just wonderful. So Mayor Marianne, I have a question for you. This is how the first question I ask all of my guests, because we're dying to know, because we love you so much. We all want to know what you wanted to be when you grew up. What did little Marianne, what was she thinking about? What did she want to be as a little girl growing up?
A novelist, a writer. So many people know that my career path prior to going into politics was journalism. So I got my degree, Bachelor of Journalism from Carleton, and then had a career in journalism for 22 years, including half of that time running my own business as a freelancer before I went into politics. And I can say those communication skills are essential to this job, but this will probably be a real shock to folks. I said it yesterday on one of my International Women's Day panels. I'm an extroverted introvert, and my best friends when I was growing up were books. I read voraciously. That probably helped with my writing. And I always, 100% on the spelling test back when we did, spelling tests in school. And I wrote my first book. I forget how old I was, but it was called Andy the Sailor. It's a very sad story. Andy traveled the world on a sailboat, and I think he dies in the end.
Oh, geez.
So we'll let somebody analyze that at a future point. But my parents had it bound, and it was kind of like my first book. So I was very thrilled. I wrote in journals. That's what I imagined being the next. When I got into journalism school, the next Edward. Woodward and Bernstein was there on my goal list. Pulitzer Prize for journalism was on my goal list, and my life took a different path. So, and here I am.
That's fantastic. And how old were you when you wrote Andy the Sailor?
I think I was about 6 or 7.
And how supportive. So your parents, they had it bound. You must have felt.
I could have a real book. Yeah, I could have a real book.
Wow. And did you make copies and distribute to friends in grade 1 and grade 2, or it was?
I'm not sure. I think I was probably still in my super introvert stage, and it was like my little book that I kept, under my pillow in my room. But I was very proud of this bound. But I still have it somewhere in my basement. I'm a pack rat. I keep sentimental items, so it's still somewhere. I will dig it up one of these days and share it with people.
We need to see that. So being an introvert, what was your experience like in public school? Did you grow up in Burlington, or?
I did not, no.
Okay, where did you grow?
I grew up in Ontario, so Toronto, Kingston, and Ottawa. I was born in the US, though, so long story there, but my dad was the Canadian. He was studying at the University of Minnesota. My mom was going to the University of Minnesota. They met, married, had kids, and then decided they wanted to come back to Canada to raise their family amidst the chaos of the 60s. So they thought Canada was a kinder, gentler place to raise a family. So they had the option because one Canadian parent, one US parent. So I grew up, we first landed in Toronto and then moved to Kingston, where we were until I was in grade 9. And then I did the balance of high school and university in Ottawa, got my first job in Toronto. And then when I was starting, my husband and I, when we were starting our family, of 3 kids, and of course Boston, you know about our dog. There's been no mail delivery service yet, so knock on wood.
Maybe he'll make a cameo.
He may make an appearance. Yeah, we'll see. First job in Toronto. But then when we were raising our family, I wanted to raise my kids in a place that was similar to Kingston. And even though Ottawa at the time was a big city, it still had a small town feel. I could go down to the Byward Market in Ottawa and run into people I knew. And that was kind of my happy place. And that sense of community, even for a big city, was still there. So love the water, love waterfront, love history. I got that love from Kingston. And so Burlington reminded me of both of those cities. And we love hiking. We love the waterfront. We love, when Emma's was still open, Emma's back porch, we'd sit and come out from Toronto, have a hike, have a beer, and enjoy it. And then we just decided we were going to move here and never looked back. So 21 years ago. We've been
fantastic.
Here. Yeah, it's my adopted home, I say. It's my home by choice. I've never lived in any other city that long. So
fantastic. Yeah. Oh, it's such a great city. We love it. And we love all the things you're doing with this city.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I want to go back to you being an introvert as a little girl growing up and what that was like for you. And do you remember the moment where you sort of stepped out a little bit to show that extroverted side? Like you must have been an extrovert at home with your parents, like in a safer place.
I was still an introvert. I would say until early in my career now that you've asked the question and I'm thinking about it, but there's an anecdote that I can tell you. My mom obviously was from the US. And so every second Christmas, my mom's mom, so my grandma, would come to Canada, and then the other Christmas she would spend with my mom's brother. So she would alternate between the two of us. So every 2 years we'd get a visit from grandma at Christmas, and I had a great relationship with my grandma. She had a set of pearls that I loved. I have my own set of pearls now that I love, and I used to love just playing with grandma's pearls. But we would pick her up at the airport. So my siblings, so there's 4 of us. I'm the second second kid, three girls and a boy. And when grandma would show up, we were all so excited because we hadn't seen her in 2 years, and everyone would like race and jump all over grandma and yay and scream and yell and make a lot of noise. And I would stand there patiently, not causing a scene, not, just feeling really bizarre about, just wanting to not be exuberant like that and not really knowing how to greet Granny. And I was just as excited as they were. And I was kind of envious, I think, that they just had this sense of abandon, and they didn't care what people thought. And it was completely appropriate to be all, excited to see grandma. And one year, so my mom was watching this kind of unfold every 2 years. And one year, my mom said, "Let Marianne go greet grandma." And she like held back my siblings so that I could, in my quiet way, go and greet grandma. It was very quiet. It was very, I remember that so clearly. And, just that metaphor of sometimes you have to allow, you have to make space for people to step into that space. Right. And that's what my mom did in that moment. And probably until I didn't really find my voice, I would say, my public voice, until I was a journalist, a working journalist, and I was in print, right? When, as you would expect, magazines, newspapers, I wrote, I was in print. And one of my, an editor at a newspaper had been tapped on the shoulder to be part of a television show. And they were asking him, do you know somebody that is opinionated and can, defend themselves and, speak about these issues? We're looking for guest panelists and so forth. So he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "You should go do this." It's like, "Well, I've never done TV or radio." And he's like, "No, you'll be great. Don't worry about it. Just say how you feel." And so I did the show, and they were so happy. When you're looking at a camera, it's different, right? Like some people get really nervous about that. Yeah. But to me, it was like, there's only one or two people here. So it didn't kind of trigger my introverted, I kind of forgot I could blank out that there's, thousands of people out there watching what I had to say. And so in a really weird way, it was a natural fit. And then I never looked back. Actually, my career morphed into more and more and more television and radio, and I left the print side behind. So then I realized I can do this. I can, speak publicly, and I can have my voice, and then, lots of practice and training, and, I still get nervous from time to time, but here we are, right? Wow. Here we are.
That's so interesting, and it's so inspiring. Like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, if I had heard this when I was 10 years old, because and how wonderful and gracious of your mother to do that for you. And it's so true what you're saying, is that we need to open up the space for other women. If we are more in that sort of like I'm more of an extroverted type, so I'll just like go for it. And sometimes, I need to take that pause and say, hey, somebody else has something to say over here. And like your mom did for you, like, let's make that space for them. Right. Because we all have a voice. And I think, with the pandemic and reflection on so many things over the last year, I just love, the storytelling that's happening now, and listening to women tell their story and where they're coming from. And really, I feel like we're getting to understand each other a little more, which helps to build this platform of what we want to talk about today. And that is raising women and encouraging each other and working together, and also being brave and courageous enough to go for it in male-dominated industries. And I wanted to share a story with you. So before I started doing my business full-time, I worked for a large corporation for 18 years, and I was in my 20s, and I had a boss he was in his 40s, and he was a great manager. He always encouraged me. I did feel like one of the guys, but I felt supported and loved. And so I thought, I'm going to take over this company. I am rising to the top in my jewelry business. It'll always be a little thing on the side, but I'm going for it. So I went and I took a promotion, and the manager I ended up working for, so I'm in my 20s, so I don't quite understand when people older than me maybe have insecurities or anything like that. I'm thinking he knows everything, I know nothing. He second guessed every single thing I did. And I went from wanting to run a company to begging for my old job back because I can't handle the stress, and I can't. So my ego, self-esteem just went down, down, down. The good news was that I had a very supportive mentor there, and it's all male that I worked with. He said to me, you realize if you take a demotion, you can never rise back up again. And I said, well, that's just a chance I have to take because I cannot handle this toxic environment. I did it. And all of a sudden, my other coworkers started doing it. Other people started doing it, taking demotions for a happier,
Wow.
work experience. And I feel like, I want to talk to you about toxic work environments. And I want to talk about, being brave enough to remove yourself from the toxicity and know that there's something greater and better out there still. Like it's, yeah. Anyways,
I have a lot to say about that.
Okay, good. I'm so excited. Yeah.
Well, people ask why I ran for mayor. And there's several layers to that answer. Obviously, I believed I had something to offer. I was concerned about the direction and the decisions that were being made. I thought, with some new council members around the table, we knew 2 councillors were retiring. My seat would be vacant in Ward 2. If I won, that would be, 4 new people. Really an opportunity to go in a different direction and make different decisions. And so all of that was true, right? Mm-hmm. That is the huge reason why I ran, of course, to offer yourself and a set of new ideas and a choice for people. What direction do you want to go in the city? But underlying all that was a toxic workplace. So for 8 years, it was a very difficult environment to work in from my colleagues. And it, there was... if I brought a motion forward, it would be blocked just because it was me bringing it forward, and there was a punitive element to it. There was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of sort of reputational damage that was happening, behaviors that wouldn't be tolerated in typically in a workplace environment, but there's not as much control over elected officials. And that's something, actually, this is a whole side conversation, that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, I sit around that board. It's an association of all the municipal governments in Ontario. So I'm part of the large urban caucus, and we're working on how do we develop more robust codes of conduct for members of council. Because just because it's the electorate that hire and fire you every 4 years doesn't mean that you get a pass on professional behavior, not harassing each other, not bad mouthing each other, some of the toxic behaviors that I've observed and personally experienced. And so the decision to run for mayor was, I can't do this anymore like this. I can't be in this environment anymore like this. So I have a choice. I either don't run again at all, or I try to bring change. I try to run for what I believe I can do and bring the change. And that you read it in my bio. Mm-hmm. That's why respectful work environment was right up at the top of my platform. Right up at the top. If we cannot find a way to disagree with each other, to allow diverse voices, to allow different perspectives in a healthy, respectful way, we are not going to make the right decisions for our community. And I believe so strongly, and partly that's my journalism background, where you're trained as a journalist to look for all aspects to an issue. Right? That's doing your job. You don't just put one side out. That's an opinion piece. right? But when
Right.
you're a journalist, you're required to consult with a number of different voices and be fair in capturing those and making sure different views are heard. And that's drilled into you as a journalist, that is your obligation to give voice to diverse perspectives and be fair and be accurate and save your opinions to the opinion pieces that are labeled as such, so people can, take that into account when they're reading what you have to say. So for me, it really became the status quo is not acceptable anymore. And even though my seat was safe, right? People in Ward 2 told me they were very happy with my service. Some people, in fact, begged me not to run because they said, if you lose, you're off council. We can't have that. And I said, I won't be effective to you in serving you under these present circumstances. So I have to do this, and I will leave it. You become zen after a while in politics. You accept that the voters get to choose, and I was okay with that. It's like, I will offer what I have, and if they don't want it, I can accept that. I absolutely can accept that, and I'll go find some other way to do good in the world. And things turned out obviously the way they turned out, and I'm totally thrilled to be here and serving in this way. Yeah. But it's like you said, it at a certain point you reach a crossroads where the continued trajectory of the path you're on isn't sustainable. So you have to bend it in a new direction. And I liken running for mayor like jumping off a cliff, because you really don't know what you're in for. And it also turned out to be the nastiest election in Burlington history. So I really didn't know what I was in for, but the parachute was there. Right? Yeah. The parachute was there in the form of the community that rallied around, that had been watching me for 8 years, saying, I like what she has to offer, and believe in the platform, and they came around, and so my parachute was there. Fantastic. So there you go.
Gosh, how did you cope during that time with all of that stress?
It's a great question. So I found ways to serve that were under the radar, right? I knew that if I brought things to, we call it the horseshoe, because it used to be, it still kind of is shaped like a horseshoe, where we make the formal decisions at committee and council. And I knew that the environment was so toxic that it would be very difficult to get decisions through that because of the way things were. I still was successful, because this is where I'll just take a side moment to promote democracy, which I love.
Yes, go for it.
When the public gets involved, so all of you out there, when the public gets involved in decision makings, you can actually upend a toxic environment. And I would see it. There were, you pick your battles. And I'll come back to that, because when you're under siege like that, your creativity goes out the window, your passion, your inspiration goes out the window, and you're just left with what is absolutely essential to bring forward, that for me to look in the mirror. But it's such a diminished view and of what you truly have to offer and to give. And so I would pick my battles, and I would still bring things forward, and then I would make my case, and the public would show up either by writing emails or showing up in council chambers, and I would be like, okay, you folks tell those folks why you're not going to do this, because it's the right thing to do. And the votes would go through often in many cases, because the public was watching. There was an accountability to that. And so despite all of that, still got some things through. But I can tell you, until I was elected mayor and a new council that is much more collaborative, I didn't realize how much of my creative energies, my inspiration, had been put in a teeny little box and set aside, because I knew you won't be successful. Like, just don't even, and you don't even realize you're doing it until I would wake up and I'd have ideas and I'd have inspiration. I'd be, excited to get out. I'd be jumping out of bed, putting on my high heels and ready to go. And it was like, I've not felt this way in 8 years. And that's the cost of it. So even though you can be effective and you can get through it, there's so much lost. We're a shadow of what we have to contribute. And that's, that's what I've felt by having the contrast. So,
Right.
So you still, you do what you need to do around the horseshoe, but I kept a lot of, I didn't bring things forward. What I did was I connected directly with the community. That was my happy place. It still is. So I'd have town halls, or I'd help people, what is your issue that you're working on? Let me see if I can help you. I'd bring staff together. I'd hold community meetings. I'd talk about their vision for the city. I'd find every way I could to help people without bringing it to a vote and kind of keep it under the radar.
Yeah.
But the community knew. The community knew. Actually, at one point, I'd recognized that people were having a hard time, on development applications. How do I have my voice heard? And what stage are we in the process? And what is this whole business with this local planning appeal tribunal that gets to override council and all that stuff? So I developed a series of documents. Here's how you have your voice heard. And, fast forward to a month ago, where we have this huge development proposal at Millcroft Greens to take 5 parcels, 4 of which are green space on the golf course, and turn it into housing, 98 houses. And the residents said, we found your documents and we've been following them. So it paid off. This is years after I developed those. So you find other ways to serve.
Yeah.
That's what I did to keep going, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was extraordinarily difficult, and it took a huge toll, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
Huge toll.
Sure. Wow. That's unbelievable. Now, the other part of this, so there's so many moving parts to what you're talking about. And there are, because we just celebrated International Women's Day, I want to ask you about the women who you have been working with for the past 8 years. I think it's okay to say that as women, we are learning every day to raise each other up, and what that means, and what it means to not be competitive with each other, and to really celebrate each other. It is a learning. And it's okay if you've had times in the past where you weren't behaving in that way. We're getting there. It's called progress. So I want to know also, from your perspective, was that something you had to teach the women in your circle, like how to actually be there for each other instead of working against each other? Because I can imagine that it's pretty competitive in terms of, who's going to work by your side, who's going to support you with different campaigns. Like, everybody wants to be the best, and how can we all, get to the top the fastest? Like, how do you manage that, where you're creating a culture of women working together rather than competing against each other?
I think you try to model the behavior that you're hoping other people will reflect back to you. So it's do unto others, right? Do unto others the way you would want to be done to you. And that can be tough. And I've had women be extraordinarily collaborative and lift me up. My first boss way back when was a woman, and I still think of her as a mentor, as someone who gave me so many gifts that are still with me in terms of, just being strong and finding my voice and making room for others. I've also had that experience with men in my career where men have tapped me on the shoulder and said, you can do more, and I believe in you. And I can tell you, in the early days, it was the men who said, you should try this, you'd be good at it, and putting opportunities in my lap. And so we need those male allies, and I am extraordinarily grateful. My biggest fan is my husband. I wouldn't be here for sure without him at all. And he's always been you can do better, you can do more than this if you want. and I'll
Mhm.
stand with you. I'll stand with you as you jump off the cliff. So
That's so
did.
great. So I have to
He
ask you,
did.
does that ever drive you nuts? I have a supportive husband too, and sometimes I'll be like, okay, just leave me alone for a minute. Like, do you ever feel like you're being pushed to the limit where it's like,
He worked on me for 6 months before I decided to run for mayor. That's a true
he
story. A lot of
did?
people know that. Yeah, he did. He was you have so much more to give than what you're able to give in this circumstance. So either find another way to serve entirely, so leave politics altogether, or run for mayor. And I said, well, I need to think about that. And, but at the same time, he's like, it's your decision. I'll support you, whatever you do. But just so you know, I think you have more to give, and you're being blocked right now. And he was right about that. He was right about both. And so I said, okay, but I could lose. Right? Like, there's no guarantees in politics, I could lose.
Yeah.
Like, yep, I'm cool with that. He goes, you'll land on your feet. I have no doubt that you'll land on your feet. You'll find another way to serve. There is more. You have more to give. You have many arenas you can play in. It was kind of echoes of my father, who would say to me, you can do whatever you set your mind to. So pick something. Pick whatever you want. And you don't have to stay with that one thing for your whole life. And I didn't. I've changed careers. Well, once, journalist to politician, although they're very simpatico, so not as big a change as you would think. But you can do whatever you want. So I had those voices, and to know that if I lost, that was the certainty that I needed. I wasn't afraid to lose. I would have been sad, obviously, because I love what I do, and I think I have something to offer. But when that fear was taken away, then I could go forward absolutely at peace with letting the voters decide. And so, a campaign is stressful enough, and that campaign was brutal. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I'm cool with what I will give it my best. I will make my case for why I think I can serve the community. But the choice is yours, and I'm cool with that. And I'm not afraid to lose. And when that's gone, you can truly step into who you are. And I think people saw that and were really attracted by that. So, anyway, so
that's such a powerful message, just that in itself, not being afraid to lose. I think that's such a real fear, it's a huge fear. And you're right. That's when you can say that out loud, that helps you to land on your feet and just keep going for it.
And, some people will know this, maybe not all of the people watching, but I lost 2 elections before I won 3 in a row. So I know what losing an election is like. And I also know it doesn't define you and it doesn't end you. And in fact, in my case, those 2 elections that I lost, one at the municipal level and in a different ward, and then I moved to Ward 2 and ran and won here, and won provincially. And it was both clarifying that municipal politics is really where I want to be, not party politics. And we could talk about that for a lot. But also it actually introduced me to more people. I got a better understanding of the issues, having been in those campaigns and knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, met great people. So nothing is lost. Even if I hadn't gone into politics, those were still amazing experiences. And at the end of the day, it did ultimately help propel me to my first win, which was against an incumbent with 3 other people on the ballot. And I was the new kid on the block, so to speak, and won by a solid majority that election. And then I was running as an incumbent myself the next time. And then the third election was taking on another incumbent for mayor. And it all built on each other. So one of the messages when I talk to young women and men in high school is don't be afraid of failure. Use it. Build on it, learn from it. And it can clarify for some that really isn't the path they want to go in. But in my case, it just actually set me up for future success. And so So it wasn't failure. It was learning. It was research. It was a whole bunch of really good things.
Oh, that's great. I saw your Choose to Challenge, by the way. Loved
Yes.
it. That was
Yes.
fantastic. So you are encouraging young women to really go for it and get out there and work in male dominated industries.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what advice would you give to young women who are perhaps thinking about it? I can tell you right off the bat, I know a young woman who wanted to get into carpentry. It was her passion, and she didn't do it because of the, her anxiety about working with men in that industry, and she was afraid of being disrespected, and all kinds of emotions and anxiety came into play. So she never pursued that. And that, it makes me so sad, because I, like you, have had so many men telling me, you can do this, go for it. I've got the supportive husband. I've only experienced maybe a handful of guys who were the ones we don't want to be in the same room with. Most of my guy friends, a lot of them are watching right now. They're amazing and so supportive. So how do we do this for young women? How do we get them to really go for this and do your Choose to Challenge? Because I think it's great.
Yeah. So this is easy to say, and it is very, very difficult to do. So I just want to acknowledge how challenging this is. Follow your dreams. So if you're good at carpentry, if you're good at engineering, follow your dreams. But here's the key. Nobody gets to define you. Nobody else gets to define you except you. And I've had, as you have had, I have both men and women who have supported me, and men and women who have done their level best to undermine and bury me. We've all had that. And, you asked earlier how I got through some of the toxic behavior. It was every day getting up saying what they think and believe and say about me is not who I am, and I know that. And as long as you are grounded in yourself and you know who you are, what you are about, what you believe in, what you value, what you're striving for, you can get through it. Having said that, you can't get through it alone, right? I don't know how anybody would do this alone. I had friends, I had my husband, I had my family, I had a support network, and I had a safety net, right? Don't worry if you fail or if you lose, because we've got your back, and you'll get we'll support you to go to your next thing. So I recognize that not everybody has that. Not everyone has those supports. And, one of the things we've been talking about during the pandemic is we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And so it's, when I talk about my story, I also recognize I've had a lot of privileges that have helped me get through those difficult times that other people would not have had. So, so I just want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge that for some people out there, if you're struggling and if you don't feel like you've got it in you today to do, forgive yourself for that. Or actually don't even forgive yourself. There's nothing to be forgiven. Be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Be kind to yourself for that. Don't judge yourself. And to the degree that you can, try to find things that support you and fill you up, and people that will support you and stand with you and fill you up, because none of us does any of this alone, myself included. So
true. That is so inspiring. Oh, you're such a delight. Can you come on every week?
I feel like I've been talking to Oprah. It's like, I think you're a great interviewer. So you've got me to talk about things that are very personal, but I'm happy to do it if it helps others.
Well, I really, really appreciate that. And when I was thinking, what am I going to call this interview series? I thought Get to Know Her is the best, because these are the stories that are so powerful and encouraging. And I always thought, this is the kind of stuff I wanted to listen to when I was developing my business. I didn't really want to hear from people who had like made millions and billions of dollars. And like, I wanted to talk to people like me who, had a full-time job, were starting their dream on the side, what that looked like, the pain, the struggle, the suffering, like it's all part of it. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that enough, and women feel like, oh my God, I feel like such a loser today, and that never would have happened to so-and-so, but it happens to everybody. It's hard work. And that's, banding together like this is so great, because we can be in the trenches together. And I think that's something COVID has taught us as well. Like you said, we're in this storm. We may all be in a different boat, but the storm, it unifies us, and let's talk about the pain and the struggle, and let's share how we can be better together, right? Like,
yep.
Yeah, so great. You have been so fantastic. I am so happy. And I want to invite you to just a little 10-minute Instagram after party. And Mayor Ward, I was hoping we could talk about a day in the life of.
Okay.
On the Instagram party.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just going to have to tell me how to join that.
No problem. I will be instructing you on that. I'm going to put you back into my fancy virtual green room and say goodbye to everybody. But thank you so, so much. We loved having you. You're absolutely amazing and so inspiring. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. That was just so fantastic. I'm so inspired. I've got like electricity in my veins here. So come on over to Instagram Live and join us there for a little after party. I really want to talk to the mayor about a day in the life of. I'm sure her every day is different for her. And also, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. And I'm really excited because today is the first day that you will hear my intro and outro music written by my dear friend Steve Eggers, who is watching today, and his daughter Chantel Eggers singing the intro and the outro. That's going to be on YouTube later. I'm so excited. When I heard the music, I almost started to cry. Well, I did cry. He's such a supportive guy. Lots of supportive guys watching today and listening. Thank you so much. And don't forget to use the coupon code GET2KNOW HER for 21% off when you shop brendabadome.com. Have a great day and keep on showing the world your sparkle.